Hey everybody, CorelDraw users. I'm here today with a CorelDraw X7, and I'm going to be talking about cutting vinyl decals out of possibly these. We're going to talk about letter kerning, which we can do with the shape tool. We're going to talk about welding text, getting it ready to cut, and a couple macros here. This one, GDG Contour Quick, creates a small outline around your text. And I'll show you why you'll want to do that. And then I have another macro that, let's see this one. These are small macros that are included with a couple of my products. These two here, they quickly round text. So if I was to select this one and click it, it would round it down. If I make it bigger and I hold shift, you can see how it rounds it. That would be down, and then holding shift up. And not holding shift, it won't round it as much. So just handy little macros to quickly round the text and to quickly create a contour around the items. Okay, we'll probably do this video in a couple parts, but sometimes you'll want to make a decal out of this, and you can see it's not going to work well for cutting vinyl. And this macro, unfortunately, one of the things about CorelDraw, the contour tool, isn't fast, and it's not the most powerful tool. It's not the greatest, and it has bugs, unfortunately for me to say. So I do keep a copy of FlexiSign handy a lot of times to do contours, because it does contours better. But I can depend on it sometimes. Like if I want to contour on this, because if I want to cut this here, I don't want it to be too thin, and I pay attention to detail because I like to make things easier. So I'll round these corners here. So if I run the macro on this and I want to make a decal out of that, holding shift, and I'll press this one, which should give it a round corner, and let's see what happens on this. Okay, that's too big, so we won't hold shift. I'll hold control, which will make a half size contour. Now when I cut a decal out of this, that's going to be a lot easier to weed. It's going to last longer. And I like to pay attention to the details here. And that'll make a great decal. If I didn't want it so thick on this one, I could make it larger, hold control, run the macro, and I still get my effect, but it's not as thick. And see how I want to fix these little parts. This will make you stand out between compared to other people that do decals, because there's a lot of people that do decals nowadays, sign shops. When you worry about these little details here, your decal is going to last longer, and it's going to be easier for you to weed because it is thicker. So basically that's what we did with this macro here, and that's why I do that. So like this one, they want a decal out of that. See that sharp corner right there? That's going to get hit by, if they're cleaning the vehicle. So I'll just select this text and I'll run the macro. And now it's slightly thicker, and it's got rounded corners, which will make a much better decal. And honestly, I like to make it a little thicker, so I'll probably just run the macro without holding control, and you can see that'll make a perfect decal. And delete the thin version, and that would be a great decal. Color it any color I want and send it to cut. And great for this one too. Let's talk about see, this one's real thin, so we're definitely going to want to. So I assigned weld on my keyboard. I welded that, because if I don't, you have these intersecting lines, which doesn't work well for a vinyl cutter. So I just press W and I weld, and bam. But look at these sharp points, just like we were talking about, and it's too thin to make a decal. So I'm going to run the macro, holding control. It's going to thicken it up, delete the thin version. And now I have a slightly thicker version of this design, which would work better. And let's talk about letter kerning. Like I told you, that doesn't look good. All caps usually doesn't look good. Look how the W. I'm going to break this apart here. See that? W. I don't recommend all caps on cursive. If you can tell your customer it looks bad, and hopefully they'll believe you, that would look much better. And then we weld that together and we run the macro. Holding controls makes it slightly thicker, and it looks better. I mean, I would probably do something with this curve here, but other than that, that'll make a better vinyl decal. Same thing with this bold one down here. See these sharp corners? You're going to get into trouble. It's going to be harder to weed. It's going to sometimes pull up the material when you're weeding it, and the sharp corners sometimes will be affected when the person is washing or power blasting or rubbing the decal to clean the vehicle or wherever the decal goes. So just run the macro. Bam. And we got a nice decal there. And these two macros are found in my GDG Click It Contours and Shadow macro for X7. They're bonus freebies, and these are bonus freebie macros in my GDG Round Text macro. One more thing I want to talk about. Like we said, we're going to talk about letter kerning. That's one of the more things that I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to curve it. Oops. So I'm going to curve it holding shift so it'll get more of a curve. Move this out of the way here. I'm going to weld it by pressing W, which I assigned to weld. And don't be like a lot of decal shops, that don't pay attention to these details here. You want to fix this. Like this right here. You're going to want to fix that too. So just take a square, weld the square, and fix it. Make it look good. Takes you a second just to look at the soon-to-be decal, and we just fixed the details to make this look much better, because when you curve it, it messes up the kerning. I had a node there, but anyways, you get the idea. And what we would do on this, I would run the Mac. It's large, so we would hold shift. If it's a large item, you hold shift, you get a bigger contour. We don't want to hold shift. Let's hold nothing, and that'll make a perfect decal right there. Pay attention to detail, and it comes out much better. Sometimes you have something like this, and the customer is going to want this, and it's just too much detail for a decal. But they want it. They want a rough look, So what would I do with this? I could run the macro, and Corel's contour tool is going to lock up on this. It's going to take too long to create a contour, or probably be buggy and not contour some of the letters. So what would you do for something like this to make it cuttable? Well, let's see. We'll convert it to Bitmap, and I'll convert it to grayscale. And always keep an eye on this size here. Anti-aliasing, we want that. We don't need transparent background. And we want the size. Let's see, it's only 2 inches on my screen. We want the size a little bigger. And the size that I'm talking about is the file size. 1 meg's perfect for tracing. You don't want it to be too small. So I'll click there. Grayscale. 4. Let's see what happens. See, it's grayscale now. What do we do now? We go to Bitmaps. We're going to go blur, low pass, and I got shortcuts for all these on mine. That way I can do it real quick. And once you do this a few times, it's going to be faster. You put a little blur on it. I'm going to put 2. And I'll click OK. And now we're going to convert this. We're going to go Bitmaps, Mode, Black and White, and we're going to go Line Art, and we make it thicker. Line Art, thicker. Probably not all the way thick. Sometimes it bugs out, but looks like it's working pretty good this time. And I don't use Corel's trace too often, but I think it'll work well in this case. So we're just going to go Bitmaps, and we're going to go to Quick Trace, and we did a quick trace. And then we ungroup and delete this extra section. Combine that, and now we can actually make a decal out of that. And you can fine-tune all your parameters to get it as thick as you want it. If I didn't add so much low pass and didn't add so much black and white black value when I converted to black black and white, it would change the output. It wouldn't be as thick, or if you want it thinner, thicker, however you like it. And that's just another tip. So I hope you like today's tips.